My name is Michael Turner. I'm 35 years old, and I destroyed my marriage by being exactly who I always was, a high school teacher who believed love was enough. I met Rachel when we were both 25. She worked at her father's real estate company, Coleman Properties, a mid-sized firm with aspirations of becoming a regional powerhouse. I was just starting my career teaching English literature at Westfield High. What drew me to her wasn't just her beauty, though with her chestnut hair and piercing green eyes, she certainly had that, but how she seemed to genuinely admire my passion for teaching. "I love how you talk about books," she told me on our third date, her eyes shining. "It's like you're opening doors to new worlds. Those early years were magical. We'd take modest weekend trips to nearby coastal towns, cooking together in the small kitchen of our apartment, dreaming about the future as we shared wine on our tiny balcony. When I proposed after 18 months, her yes felt like the beginning of everything I'd ever wanted. But Richard Coleman was the poison in our garden from day one. A self-made man who'd built his business through relentless ambition, he viewed my profession with poorly disguised contempt. "Still grading papers, Michael?" He'd ask at family dinners, swirling expensive scotch in crystal tumblers I could never afford. "When are you going to get a real job?" Rachel would laugh nervously and change the subject. In the beginning, she'd defend me later, in private. "Dad just doesn't understand that not everyone measures success the same way," she would reassure me. But I noticed as time went on, those defenses became less frequent, less passionate. The comments became more pointed, more frequent. "A man should be able to provide better than this," Richard would say, gesturing dismissively at our modest apartment when he visited, at our second-hand furniture, at my 10-year-old sedan. The real damage happened slowly, imperceptibly. Like water wearing away stone, Richard's poison seeped into Rachel's perception of me. She began making small comments about our financial limitations, a sigh when looking at our aging couch, casual mentions of friends whose husbands bought them expensive jewelry for birthdays, suggestions that I should consider my options career-wise. "Teaching is my calling, Rachel," I'd remind her. "We agreed on this life together." "I know," she'd respond. "I understand." But her tone grew colder each time, her eyes more distant. I should have seen it coming. Maybe I did, but couldn't admit it to myself. The woman who once loved discussing classroom breakthroughs with me now changed the subject when I talked about my students. The woman who once said my passion was what she loved most about me now looked at that same passion with something approaching disdain. Then came the night I overheard her on the phone with her father. I'd come home early, a rare canceled faculty meeting giving me an unexpected free hour. "I know, Dad," she was saying, her voice low. "You were right about him from the beginning. He's just content with so little. I thought I could live with that, but—" The conversation ended when she noticed me in the doorway. She didn't apologize or explain. Instead, she looked at me with something worse than anger, pity, as if I were a disappointing child who couldn't grasp a simple concept. That night, Rachel turned away from me in bed and whispered, "We need to talk soon," leaving me staring at the ceiling, knowing my world was about to shatter. The conversation came 3 days later. 3 days of Rachel avoiding my eyes, of meaningless small talk, of tension thick enough to choke on. When she finally sat across from me at our kitchen table, the same table, where we'd shared countless meals and dreams, her face had a stone-cold finality that turned my stomach to ice. "My father was right about you." "Michael," she said, her voice clinical, detached, "you're not good enough for me. I shouldn't have married down?" I stared at her, unable to process the words coming from the same lips that had once whispered love against my skin. Had I misheard? Was this some cruel joke? "What are you talking about?" I finally managed, my voice barely audible. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes clear and cold. "Look at us. Look at our life. I'm 32 years old and this is it? This tiny apartment, your tiny paycheck, your tiny ambitions? You once loved my passion for teaching," I said, still struggling to reconcile this stranger with the woman I'd married. She laughed, a brittle, bitter sound that bore no resemblance to the warm laughter I'd fallen in love with. "I thought it was charming when I was younger. Now it just looks like giving up," she responded harshly. I felt heat rising in my chest, anger mixing with disbelief. "Giving up?" I changed lives in that classroom. Just last week, Eric Thompson told me, "I don't care what some underachieving teenager told you," she cut me off. I care about the fact that I'm married to a man who will never be more than he is right now. Never earn more, never achieve more, never give me the life I deserve. I sat in stunned silence, watching 7 years of marriage disintegrate before my eyes. "There's someone I want you to meet," she continued, her tone shifting to something almost excited. "David Ross. He's an investment banker, recently divorced, everything you're not. Rich, successful, sophisticated. Dad arranged for us to have coffee. The numbness gave way to white-hot rage. You're telling me you've been seeing someone else? That your father set you up?" I demanded, my hands gripping the edge of the table. "If you don't like it, that's too bad," Rachel said, standing to emphasize her next point. "I own this house. It was my down payment, remember? You'll get nothing in a divorce." The threat hung in the air between us. But instead of feeling intimidated, I felt oddly disconnected, as if watching a poorly written drama unfold on television. "So that's it?" I asked quietly. 7 years together and you're trading me in for a wealthier model?" Rachel walked to the hallway mirror and began applying lipstick, preparing for her date with David, I realized, with a sickening jolt. She wore a deep blue dress I bought her for our anniversary last year. "He's everything you're not," she said, checking her reflection. "This is what I should have had from the beginning." I made one last desperate appeal. "Rachel, think about what you're doing. Remember our trip to Carmel? How we talked about starting a family? All our plans. Our history is the problem, Michael," she interrupted, her voice sharp as broken glass. "It's a history of settling, of accepting less, of being satisfied with mediocrity. I'm done settling." She grabbed her purse and keys, pausing at the door for her final blow. "Don't wait up. I might be very late," she announced with a cold smile. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that somehow sounded more final than a slam would have. I sat alone at our kitchen table, surrounded by the wreckage of everything I'd believed in, feeling the foundations of my life crumble beneath me. I didn't cry that night. I didn't break things or get drunk or call Rachel's friends to beg for intervention. Something inside me had shifted fundamentally, like a key turning in a lock I hadn't known existed. While Rachel continued her affair openly, flaunting her dates with David and her father's approval, I quietly consulted a divorce attorney named Elaine Walsh, a former student's mother who'd once told me, "If I can ever repay you for what you did for Kelly, just ask." The consultation revealed that Rachel and her father had severely miscalculated. The house may have been purchased with her down payment, but my teacher's pension contributions and a small inheritance from my grandmother had gone into renovations and mortgage payments. More importantly, several investments we'd made during the marriage were jointly owned, regardless of who earned more. "She can't just throw you out and keep everything," Elaine explained, shuffling through our financial documents. "That's not how marriage works, even in no-fault divorce states." But legal leverage wasn't what I wanted. I wanted dignity, freedom, a complete break from the woman who'd crushed 7 years of love beneath her expensive heels. Instead of fighting dirty or seeking revenge, I simply began living as if our marriage was already over. I applied for a position at Whitmore Academy, a prestigious private school known for its innovative curriculum. I enrolled in a master's program for educational leadership at State University. I started writing a book about teaching. Methods I'd developed over the years, ideas Rachel had once found fascinating but had eventually dismissed as academic nonsense. On a Tuesday, when Rachel was scheduled for dinner with David and her father, I methodically packed my belongings. I took only what was unquestionably mine, but I also didn't leave behind anything that truly mattered to me. My books, my grandfather's watch, the journals where I'd documented classroom breakthroughs over the years. As I removed our wedding photos from the wall, a profound sadness washed over me, not for losing Rachel, but for realizing how completely I'd misunderstood who she really was. Had she always been this person, or had Richard's influence transformed her? It no longer mattered. I left my keys and a printed notice of divorce filing on the kitchen counter. My new apartment was small but clean, with a view of a park where I could watch families on weekends, a reminder of what I'd lost, but also what I might still find someday. Rachel called at 11:38 p.m., her voice frantic. "What are you doing? You can't just leave! We need to talk about this." "There's nothing to discuss, Rachel," I replied, my voice calmer than I'd expected. I've filed for divorce. My attorney will contact yours. I wish you well. You can't be serious. This house, our life together? She sputtered in disbelief. You made it clear that our life together wasn't enough for you. I cut her off. I'm simply agreeing with your assessment. Her scream vibrated through the phone as I hung up. You'll be back. You need me. But even as she raged, we both knew she had already lost something irreplaceable. 3 years can change everything. I was now department head at Whitmore Academy, where my innovative teaching methods had earned recognition from both colleagues and parents. My book, Teaching Tomorrow, Innovation in the Classroom, had won the National Educators Award and was being used in university education programs. I'd moved into a comfortable condo near campus, decorated with art from former students and bookshelves overflowing with first editions I'd collected over the years. More importantly, I was dating Sarah, a brilliant history teacher who appreciated my dedication without seeing it as a limitation. With her, I'd rediscovered the simple pleasure of being valued exactly as I was. Life was good in ways Rachel could never understand, ways that had nothing to do with status or wealth, but everything to do with purpose and connection. I was grading papers at Cornerstone Coffee, my regular Saturday morning spot, when I noticed a woman at a corner table hunched over a laptop. Something about her posture, a specific way of tucking hair behind her ear, triggered a flash of recognition that sent a jolt through my body. When she looked up, my breath caught. Rachel, but barely recognizable. She'd lost significant weight. Her once glossy hair now dull and poorly maintained. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and there were fading bruises on her wrists that makeup couldn't completely hide. Her clothing was nondescript, nothing like the designer labels she'd once considered essential. When our eyes met, her composure crumbled completely. Michael. Oh God, Michael, she gasped, her voice cracking as she approached my table, clutching her laptop like a shield. I didn't know you came here. I've been coming here for years, I said, my tone neutral. What happened to you, Rachel? She collapsed into the chair across from me, tears already forming. Everything happened, she whispered, her hands trembling. The story poured out in broken, desperate fragments. David Ross, the perfect man her father had chosen, turned out to be a monster behind closed doors. At first, it was everything I thought I wanted, she whispered, voice trembling. The penthouse apartment, the expensive cars, the social status. But David? He's controlling, violent. He monitors everything I do, controls every penny I spend. The abuse escalated quickly after they married. David would rage at her for minor infractions, spending too much at the grocery store, talking too long with a male colleague, wearing an outfit he deemed inappropriate. He isolated her from friends, monitored her phone, and when she tried to leave 6 months in, he used his wealth and legal connections to trap her. He had lawyers, private investigators. He made it clear that if I left, I'd have nothing and no one would believe me, she continued, her eyes darting around the coffee shop as if expecting David to appear. When I finally got proof of the abuse, recordings, photos of injuries, he threatened to ruin Dad's business with false accusations of fraud. When Rachel finally escaped and sought help from her father, Richard's response was devastating. You chose him. Business relationships are more important than family drama. Figure it out yourself, she recounted, mimicking her father's cold tone. Her divorce from David was brutal and calculated. His legal team, using a prenup she'd signed without fully understanding, left her with nothing. Worse, her father completely cut her off, ashamed of the embarrassment she'd become to his business relationships. I'm working as a receptionist now, she admitted, tears streaming unchecked. Living in a studio apartment, completely alone. Everyone I thought would be there for me, they're all gone. I listened without interruption, feeling an uncomfortable mix of pity and vindication. The woman who had discarded me for not being good enough had been thoroughly broken by the very life she'd coveted. I think about you every day, Rachel said, reaching toward my hand but stopping short of touching me. About how stupid I was. You were the only man who ever truly loved me for who I was. I threw away the best thing in my life for money and status, and I lost everything that actually mattered. Her eyes, once cold with contempt, now burned with desperate hope. Could we ever? She couldn't finish the question. This was my moment of ultimate power and ultimate test of character. I could gloat, could twist the knife, could make her suffer as she made me suffer. The temptation flickered briefly, then died. Revenge wasn't what I wanted anymore. I'd moved beyond that need. "I'm genuinely sorry for what you've endured, Rachel," I said quietly. "No one deserves to be abused, regardless of the choices they've made." Relief flooded her face, but I continued before she could misinterpret my compassion. "However, I can't be part of your healing." "You didn't just break my heart, Rachel. You broke it deliberately, cruelly, while telling me I wasn't good enough for you. I've built a new life now, with someone who sees my value instead of my limitations. I hope you find peace, but I can't help you find it," I explained gently but firmly. "But I know now," she cried, reaching again for my hand, this time grasping it tightly. "I know you were always good enough." "I was wrong about everything." I gently removed my hand from hers. "Yes, you were wrong. But knowing you were wrong doesn't undo the damage you did. I gave you my love once, completely and without reservation. You threw it away. I won't make that mistake again," I stated with finality. I packed my papers and stood to leave. "I wish you healing, Rachel. I truly do. But that healing can't include me." "Michael, please," she begged, her voice breaking. "I have no one left." "That's not my responsibility anymore," I said, softening the words with a final, gentle truth. "You're stronger than you think. You'll find your way." I walked away then, leaving Rachel to confront the full weight of her choices and their permanent consequences. As I rounded the corner, I heard her quiet sobbing, but I didn't look back. The past was finally truly behind me. 6 months after the coffee shop encounter, an envelope arrived at my office at Whitmore Academy. No return address, just my name in handwriting I still recognized instantly. Inside was a single page, the paper high quality but the penmanship shaky. "I don't expect you to read this, and I don't expect anything in return. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. You were always good enough, Michael. I just wasn't good enough for you. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Rachel." That evening, I showed the letter to Sarah as we prepared dinner in the kitchen of the house we now shared. She read it silently, her expressive face revealing more than words could. "Are you okay?" she asked, handing it back. "Yes," I answered, surprised to find it was completely true. "It's a closed chapter now." Sarah nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. "She's right about one thing. You do deserve to be happy," she affirmed, squeezing my hand gently. We didn't discuss Rachel again that night. There was no need to. Sarah knew the whole story, and her certainty that Rachel's recognition of her mistakes didn't entitle her to forgiveness or a second chance was one of the many reasons I loved her. The next day in my classroom, I taught a unit on character versus reputation to my junior English class. As my students debated the difference between who a person truly is and how others perceive them, I found myself reflecting on the lesson it had taken me years to learn. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is simply living well and allowing time to reveal the truth. Rachel's father was wrong about my worth. Rachel was wrong about what mattered in life. But time proved them both wrong in ways they never could have anticipated. I wasn't not good enough. I was simply good in ways they couldn't recognize or value, and in that recognition lay a peace more valuable than any revenge could ever be. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.